Welcome to the Intercut podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he wanted to live, so he ate the sandwiches in the trunk. It's Arturo Zurita.
Anything from that show out of context is bound to get people to watch it. So if you have not seen anything out of Barry out of context, you're going to get a lot of Barry out of context in this podcast right here, so definitely go give it a watch.
Yep. Maybe less from Amanda. I don't know how much out of context we'll get, but she's been taking well to her life as a sheep herder. It's Amanda the Jedi.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Of course. We always have Amanda on for our best of the year and our best of the year so far lists. And this iteration is our best TV of 2022 so far. It's been a jam-packed year for TV. So much TV. It feels like the wave of shows that had COVID delays have all finally come out, whether it's returning seasons of old favorites or new big shows. There's just been so much TV. Amanda, I know you generally feel like you're not watching as much TV as Art and I, but given how much great TV there's been this year, has it been harder than normal for you to feel like you're caught up?
Yeah, there's a lot of shows that when I know this is coming, I start watching a bunch and then I don't always get through them because I just, and then, sometimes I will finish them. But with TV, usually what I end up watching all the way through just ends up on my 10 because if I'm not like vibing with something, I'll stop watching it for the most part unless there's like a reason for me to keep going. But like TV, like I don't see the point if something doesn't really click within the first couple episodes. I don't bother unless somebody says like, no, it's like really good. Just go back and give it a chance. So there's some shows that are like that. But I did my best this year, kind of.
Yeah, it's always hard to keep up. Art, how do you feel like you did in keeping up with all the TV that there is out there?
You're never going to finish it all. There's still so many shows that luckily I know some of y'all caught, so I could just rely on you guys giving it the mention. That helps a lot. But I know that there's some that just slip through the cracks, be it because ain't nobody got stars. No one's getting epics. AMC Plus, like I didn't even, come on now.
Sorry, Gaslit.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of those that of course I want to see, and I know we'll give them some of the mentions. Some that I was able to begin but not fully finish. But I think for the most part, I was able to catch a lot of great shows where I definitely have a very confident top 10 that I would recommend to people. And yeah, I mean, look, I know like Clorox and everybody, they had a very tough job in 2020 trying to beat up supply, but the Emmys this year, I think they may have it worse. They got way too much content to go through, like poor people over there. But we're going to do our best to get some recommendations on your radar.
Yeah, I have no idea how they're going to narrow those categories to 8 or to 7 or to 5 or whatever they're doing.
How much stuff was released right before June 1st, dude? Like, think about that. And then on top of that, we finally, Alina and I are always asking each other, why season A, why season B? And it finally dawned on us, Zach, that season A's, like Stranger Things and your Better Call Sauls, all of them premiered before the deadline. So that means after the deadline,
for the Emmys,
So we went back to the original. I couldn't believe this. I almost like my heart's broken, but then at the same time, I guess I should have expected it. What's the first one you remember going season A, season B?
So is it Breaking Bad or was it Sopranos? I feel like Sopranos might have done it.
Breaking Bad. So we go back
Breaking Bad definitely did it big.
Just to see when they came out. And there is a very interesting story at the AMC networks about Mad Men and Breaking Bad and how they were always going back and forth. And let me tell you, when I found out that Breaking Bad Season 5, the box set, has 2 Emmy Awards for Best Drama for the same damn season, because they were the ones who literally... I've been wondering for so long, why A/B? Is it a production thing? Is it a money thing? Nah, they released it before the deadline, so it won for 1 Emmy, and then they released it after and it won for the same damn season, Zach.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's the biggest Breaking Bad moment that they've gotten. So yeah, now seeing it with everybody else, I go like, nah, no one can beat the legend. But they're continuing it with Better Call Saul, which may pop up on this list as well. But great year from TV. Great year.
Great year for TV. Even some shows that we didn't catch, I think, got a lot of hype. I wanted to shout out a few shows that I wasn't able to catch up with, but I've heard really good things about. I just mentioned when you brought up Stars, Gaslit. It seems like a really excellent show. A lot of actors I really like on that show. It's hard to make time for a show that I don't think a lot of people have access to. So I haven't seen Gaslit. I've heard a lot of really high praise for Our Flag Means Death. I know a lot of people love that show. I think we might hear about that show later. I don't know. But I didn't see any of it. Peacemaker, I know a lot of people love. I don't feel like it would have made my top 10, but I did enjoy the first episode. Oh, cool. So we'll talk about it. But yeah, I didn't get past the first episode just because of like time, but I enjoyed what I saw. Players, which Art says probably wouldn't make my list, but I want to see the new American Vandal show. I just haven't had a chance to catch that either. A couple Apple TV Plus shows, and Shining Girls or Slow Horses. The Staircase over on HBO Max. Tokyo Vice over on HBO. And maybe Art will have Under the Banner of Heaven, but I didn't get a chance to watch it, so it won't be on my list. What about you, Amanda? What shows are you upset that you didn't watch before this podcast?
I got one episode of Pachinko in, and
how is it so far?
So good.
You're beating me by, I think, one episode, so.
Like, just basing on my one episode that I watched last night, really good. Really good. I basically last night was just like, I just watched a couple things and then stuck with one to finish it. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about that after. Righteous Gemstones, I didn't get to catch up with the new season. God, I had another one. Hacks, I didn't watch the most recent season, which I really like the first one. And then there's one other one. It's the one with
Bel Air.
The one with the Punisher. We own this city. We own this city.
Oh,
that'll come up.
That looks interesting, and I definitely want to check that one out. So I think that's pretty much it for stuff I didn't catch, but wish I would have. I'm sure there's more, but
yeah. It never really ends.
Yeah.
I had a couple.
Really.
What's the Hulu show with Keaton? With the drugs?
Oh, that was last year.
I think they're counting it. It is last year, right? So I'm good with keeping it up. But I believe it's going to be in the running for the Emmys. So, and I know a lot of people like that one, so I wanted to give that a mention. The
addiction one, yeah.
What is the name of it? Someone's going to let us know. The Old Man, which is on Hulu, started. Dope Sick. Thank you.
Dope Sick.
The Old Man that's on Hulu is barely starting.
Yeah.
And I really like that one. That we got a couple more episodes that we need from there. We were talking about people not having epics. Y'all know how to spell epics? Spell X.
Yep.
I had Epics for like 3 months, didn't watch a damn thing. From is on Epics though, and as soon as I canceled it, this show starts making the rounds, and I'm hearing great things about it. So I do want to catch that one. If y'all have heard good things, let us know. Heartstopper? In case one of y'all seen it, then maybe
that's on mine. That's on mine.
Sorry for spoiling it then. I just wanted to make sure I had that one out there.
You're good.
The Gilded Age, I've heard so many great things about over on HBO, so that's one that I'm upset I haven't been able to jump on. I've heard good things of Somebody Somewhere, also on HBO, as like a drama comedy. Yeah. And then I'm still a couple episodes, but someone spoiled it for me. The ending of Archive 81. Pretty interesting little show right there. But those would be the ones that I was upset, along with some of the ones that Zach had mentioned, or will be on Zach or Amanda's list, that I still need to get on my radar. It's difficult when it's 10 hours, you know.
It's a lot.
It's not just like you put it on.
It's not like a movie.
It's a weekend.
Exactly. Just as long as we're talking about the different options out there, are any of us counting The Boys? Because we're about halfway through the latest season of The Boys, so we haven't finished it yet. You got Boys on there?
Yeah, because I have seen it all.
We have it all, yeah.
Okay,
so that's fair.
So
I'm
counting it.
The advantage of the screeners.
Yeah, preemptively. And I do actually have one show that isn't done yet, but I want to mention it because I just feel like in terms of like the scope of other projects from this, we'll get there. It's in my 10. It's not like big one, but yeah, there's one I'm mentioning that isn't actually done yet, but not that people don't know about it, but I just want to give it like the stamp of approval. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you know, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe with that show, you just know. So I'm sure we'll get to that soon. Before we get into those lists, are there certain networks that you feel like you're gravitating towards? Does Netflix have less of a hold over your attention than it has in the past? Art, what do you think?
It's not even that Netflix does something bad. It's just the fact that you just don't give it the time of day. I'm talking about Archive 81, a show that I did like. Why didn't I finish it? Why am I still on episode 1 of Pieces of a Woman? Like, there's just, or Pieces of Her? They have 2 pieces. One of the Pieces shows that they've got.
Not Pieces of a Woman.
There's something about it where they like, and it could be, honestly, I think it's the platform. We know that Netflix like does algorithmic things. They just make it difficult to find things. Like you start watching something and it just won't appear and you continue watching. Whereas on HBO, 1, 2, I have plenty. Whereas Hulu FX, could be the model of just them doing the weekly thing that you're waiting on. Maybe it's something that came out of FX that's going to be there. Apple does a great job at letting you know when stuff is out there, and I think they've delivered. So to me, if it's HBO, Apple, and then surprisingly third Hulu, I think it really gets put on my radar. There are some shows I have from Netflix, and that's not Netflix's fault for not pushing them at all. They hide some of these shows like it's hide and seek or something. I don't understand what they're doing over there. There should not be shows off Showtime that people don't have either. That are doing the rounds more than Netflix shows. So
Right. Amanda, what do you think?
I think Netflix actually still makes up most of my list, oddly enough. Okay. But some of that's just like long-standing favorite shows getting new seasons, just liking certain things a lot. Yeah, I think I have 4 Netflix shows in my top 10. Probably one that doesn't necessarily earn, like it's not necessarily a top 10, but I just like it, so it's there.
Yeah.
And then it's like a pretty even, like, you know, you've got Prime, Apple, FX, and HBO kind of making up the rest,
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot from Netflix, but I don't know if they've had necessarily the zeitgeist shows as much as they have in the past. I mean, spoiler for my list, there are no Netflix shows on it, and I think that's the first time since we started doing these that I've had nothing from Netflix. But they still have more to come later this year, so maybe they'll get into my year-end list. But yeah, thus far, there is another platform that is really dominating, I think, in terms of quality at least. So we will talk about the best TV shows of 2022 so far. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com/intercutpod or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers. Also, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at Intercut Pod. That's at Intercut POD. That's short for podcast. We're also Intercut Pod on Patreon, where you can support the show for as little as $1 per month. And also, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. All right, let us get into the best TV shows of 2022 so far. Amanda kicked off our movies list. So, Art, would you like to kick us off for TV?
Mm-hmm. I'm starting off with an ABC show. An ABC show that I saw on Hulu.
Who'd have thunk it?
Abbott Elementary. Just a really easy breezy show about a teacher who's just trying to do her best to take care of her students. I think we're in an era where, because of streaming and a lot of 10 episode type story arcs where the budgets are as much as movies per episode, that we expect our TV series to be this big profound thing. And Abbott Elementary doesn't need to do any of that. I've heard criticisms about it not being some dark twists and turns. It's like, bro, the darkest twists and the darkest turns is that they ain't got funding for these kids. And if you've ever known a teacher, and even more so if you ever worked any school, this series just gets it down pat. I love the inclusion of just being able to its setting in Philly, the cast, the way that they are able to bounce off of each other, the way that they interact with the kids. It's just a very heartwarming show, and I think it's one of the best sitcoms that was just always on our radar to watch and wind down. Literally, a lot of these shows you feel like you got to take notes on, or it's like, oh, I got to remember this for the performance. Mm-hmm. This was literally, you just turn it on, relax, zone out. For people who watch stuff for a living, this is what I felt I was able to take a break from and just enjoy the show for what it was. Abbott Elementary over on ABC or Hulu.
Yeah. Nice. I feel like a broken record because I get onto this Best TV podcast every year and I say, there needs to be more hangout shows. Why are there not more hangout shows? I want to just be able to relax and spend time with a cast of characters I like and watch them grow over the course of several years. And thank you, Quinta. You agree with me. I can tell. You've taken the notes on the sitcoms that really work and you've molded them all into what is a beautifully, delightfully, wonderfully funny show.
Glover came out.
And
what did he say? He goes, I don't usually get jealous, but I put that show on and I get jealous. It's one where it's been so renowned that people just like don't want to like it. You know, they start coming up again with, like I was saying, with things that the show doesn't do that it's not even meant to be doing. But yeah, no, Keita's been killing it. You had mentioned another one. I don't know if it's going to be on it, so I want to think about it right now. You said Hangout shows. What's the one that ended up getting moved to Peacock with the wine? They all just hang out and drink wine.
Did it get moved to Peacock? Grand Crew?
Grand Crew got moved to Peacock, so it's no longer on Hulu. But
that's an honorable mention for me.
Oh, okay, beautiful. I just wanted to make sure because you just reminded me of what the perfect Hangout show is, and that and Abbott were always my go-to. I could just turn off my brain and have a good time with the cast.
Absolutely. So yeah, great shows. Abbott Elementary. I have it at my number 8 actually. I think it's a really good show. Yeah. So I'm glad you have it on your list as well.
I haven't finished it yet. Otherwise, it probably would be. It's in my honorable mentions right now.
Beautiful.
Nice. So approval from all three of us. Abbott Elementary is at Art's number 10. I'll go with my number 10 next, which is Minx, another hangout show of sorts, different kind though, set in the world of a men's pornography or a women's pornography magazine. Pornography magazine featuring naked men. If let's make it clear. But I think it's set in the late 70s, early 80s. I forget exactly when, but you know, this is like the first magazine of its sort of taking advantage of a new waves in feminism and women increasingly being able to have their own agency over their choices and roles in the workplace. And it's all centered on a couple of really excellent performances. I really think Jake Johnson is delightful in the role of the owner of these magazines. But I think Ophelia Lovibond really kind of is the glue of the show in this high-strung but also very fun role of Joyce. You know, she being this very feminist character, I think the thing that's really interesting about Minx is it's a constant war between ethics and commercialism and the sacrifices that each side is willing to make for the other. And I like that being the context of the show, that yes, you might have your ideals, but your ideals will only get you so far and they might not get you in print. So like, how much are you willing to sacrifice for your vision? How pure does your concept need to be? And centering that all around the dynamic work environment of a, you know, nude magazine, I think is just really fun. Great characters. I'm hoping it sticks around a little bit. I know it was renewed for season 2, so I'm really enjoying it so far. It barely hung on because there's so much competition for that number 10 slot. But yeah, I got Minx, the first season from HBO Max, on my list.
Honorable mention for me too. Pretty good.
Nice. Okay, Amanda, let's hear your number 10.
All right, my number 10. I haven't finished watching it yet, and nobody has, I don't think. But I'm gonna put Miss Marvel.
Oh,
cool.
I think it's cute. I think in terms of what Marvel's doing, it's creative. It has this added little flair to how they're kind of doing some of the shots, how they're expressing how she's a fan of superheroes, and just really cool animated sequences, and just it's very vibrant and colorful and just suits the character well. In a way that I don't know, for whatever reason, some of these Marvel shows, it's these more simple ones that I really liked Hawkeye, and I really like this one a lot too. And I feel like it's doing really well with Gen Z, but it is the lowest watched one so far, which I kind of get. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't necessarily want to watch the teen girl superhero movie, but I think it's really cute and actually stepping outside, not firmly, but stepping outside some of the stuff that we've grown to expect from Marvel shows and Marvel movies. And I think it's cute. I think it's really important to a lot of people too. I think Kamala is one of those characters that when she came out in comic books and stuff, that just really meant a lot to people. So it's very cool to see her in a show, and to know that the actress is also this huge fan that's just texting Kevin Feige about how he's wrong about what universe the MCU is, because he's crazy. And I agree with her.
I agree with her too.
Thank you. I think it's really I like that. I just like the whole thing around it. Yeah.
I mean, when those comics came out and they did numbers, you knew there was going to be a show.
Yeah.
I find it a little surprising that people are even talking about it being not as popular as the other shows. I mean, the other shows starred Tom Hiddleston and Oscar Isaac.
And they're homework, Zach. Yes or no? Like, there's no requirement for Miss
A lot of
Marvel
them.
than to just hang out, whereas the other ones are like, if you're not watching the
Yeah.
show, then you're not caught up on the timelines. You're not caught up on
That's
who's the
what
next
I
Cap.
mean.
They took that away. So it's like, yeah, like you're saying, it's not just a bigger star power. They also like forced you to watch those shows or else you wouldn't get the movies.
Yeah.
I like this one.
And I'm mad at some of that. I'm mad at some
This
of that,
is what
honestly.
these
And I like a
shows
lot of
should
them.
be. This feels like the best
Yeah.
of Disney
Yeah,
Channel, the best of ABC Family Freeform,
My reaction is this was what all those CW shows really
and
want to be.
CW.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, if that's
Yes,
what, if this is what
that's what
Disney
I
Plus
mean.
is going to be, then they're on a good track for it. Because yeah, it's a cute show.
Yeah,
Yeah. I get it.
I dug it. I dug it so far. Cool. So Amanda's number 10 is Miss Marvel. Let's go back to Art for number 9.
My one Netflix show. Can you guess it, Zach?
Is it Stranger Things?
Ooh, yeah. Would it be Stranger
Believe it or
Things?
not, that's
Archive?
that's an honorable mention. Archive, I did not get to
Oh.
finish. There's one little season 2 that
Oh,
came
it's
out.
Russian Doll.
Is it Russian Doll?
season
Doll
2.
Season 2.
Yeah,
It is.
there we
That's
go.
another
Just-
one I haven't seen.
It's just as good as season 1. And my only thing is, I always felt that this was supposed to be a trilogy, and it turns out that I still have my notes from the first season where they were going to make it a perfect, nice little trilogy. I feel like it's kind of done. I'm not sure. But Russian Doll still hits everything that the first season did, and I would say goes even farther. There's some very interesting decisions that happen in the show about a woman who's continuously dying and waking up, dying and waking up. Now she's getting on trains and appearing in other timelines. We've had a lot of timelines, a lot of multiverse stuff this year, and here's another example of what you could do with this type of genre, type of storytelling, and do some really profound stuff with it. I think Natasha Lyonne still continues to be a very engaging character. Like, my mom saw the first season because we had the screeners for the season 2, and she was just like, I don't know about her character. She's a little too rambunctious. And I was like, is that why you're on season 2? Because I see you finished the whole thing. She's like, well, I have to see how it ends. So it even has my mom's stamp of approval over here. It is a very fascinating
Nice.
show.
Nice.
And season 2 has some of the most beautiful shots. The way that she ends up going into these other inverse universes and such. I honestly think out of everything that I'm seeing here, it's even crazy to think because there's some other really good looking shows, but this may be one of the best looking pieces of media that have come out this year. I really do love a lot of the frames in this and just love the characters. Russian Doll season 2. Watch both seasons if you haven't back to back. It's on Netflix. They did it dirty, but do yourself a favor. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly, because I totally forgot that came out, and I haven't caught up with it yet. And I liked the first season a lot.
I mean, it
Please
was
do.
part of that just crazy April content dump.
What was
that
up
was
with
like
that?
I mean,
20
deadlines.
shows premiered on the same week or something.
Deadlines.
Yeah. I don't know. It definitely did not get the attention that I feel like it deserves, but it's a really incredible season. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm glad that you brought it up here because it was one of my honorable mentions as well.
Nice.
But my number 9 is a show that we were also mentioning before. And maybe if it didn't split its final season, I would have it higher up on this list, but I have Better Call Saul season 6 part 1 at number 9 because I think there's a lot of like the great elements we've come to expect from the team behind Breaking Bad. Like they do this thing where they will kind of break down process but into like the meticulous little details and show you every little element that you hadn't even considered was part of the planning that goes into a great moment like that. But you know, there's a lot of like putting things in place, and I feel like they're setting up a lot for these final run of episodes. And there was, you know, some amazing moments in these few episodes we got. The ending of the ending of the run of one of the characters on this show was a completely epic moment, one of the most epic moments in either show's history. And then I think actually the final episode of part 1 is one of the like classic Breaking Bad left hook rug pull moments that you're not expecting and you're absolutely floored by. But it does feel like one half of the puzzle. So as much as I enjoyed it, I'm going to leave it at number 9 and wait for those final 6 hours because I'm going to eat that up. It's so good. The show is still so well done. Talking about beautiful shots, they just routinely pull out amazing visuals on this show, and the acting is unreal. Rhea Seehorn, please hope she gets an Emmy nomination because she's amazing on the show. Yeah, it's Better Call Saul. I hope you guys have time to catch up with it, because I know a lot of people really haven't. They fell behind at some point, and it's a lot of material. It's not an easy catch up.
Yeah. I fell behind.
Yeah.
I'm 2 behind.
Are you still gonna try? You said you were gonna try.
I'll try.
Try.
July 11th, it's back. So
2 weeks.
Clock's ticking.
You got
I'll
2
fail.
weeks.
I'll
Minus
fail.
2.
All right. Well, I'm excited for it nonetheless. But Amanda, I'm also excited for your number 9.
My number 9 is definitely one that I don't actually think is like necessarily of the quality to be in a top 10 list, but it's First Kill. It's the Netflix lesbian vampire hunter show.
Fun.
It's fun. It's cute. I think it goes a little bit messy in areas like she's a vampire, but no one knows, and like her families are hunters and no one knows. But then it's like halfway through the season, you find something out, and it's all like, then why is what they're doing secret? It's like real weird. But their dynamic is just really cute, and I just think that not every piece of LGBTQ plus media needs to be works of art. Sometimes we're allowed just to have like the basic little CW style,
Some fast food,
like, supernatural rom-com type thing. We're allowed to have things like Happiest Season. So this was really cute. People are really resonating with it. Teenagers love it. I would have been obsessed with this when I was like 14. So for that, it ends up in number 9. It's adorable. So
A series that seems like it's hitting the target that it was aiming for.
yes,
at least.
absolutely. It is, which is all it needs to be.
Did it get a season 2?
They haven't announced it yet, but I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if it did get it. And like the cast themselves are like really involved with like the fan base. So I think they're getting a lot of repeat viewers from people. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, hopefully.
Cool. So First Kill from Netflix on Amanda's list at number 9. Let's go back to Art for 8.
I have an FX on Hulu original series. I think it capped at 7 or 8 episodes, starring the boy Andrew Garfield, giving it his all, dude. Absolutely killing it here.
Okay.
Under the Banner of Heaven. Oh, you got it too? Let's talk about it then. This is... Amanda, did you see the Netflix one, which is a great double feature? I explained this to Zach. Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey. It was that docu-series that was like trending for a little bit on Netflix about the Mormons.
No, I had watched one episode and then I had to go somewhere and I kind of forgot about it. But now that you've mentioned it, I am going to go back because I just recently finished Under the Banner of Heaven. So... it's a good time.
So I started watching some of those as I was finishing Under the Banner of Heaven, and it was like spoiling it because it's a documentary about real life.
Yeah.
And the show
exactly.
is telling you, they really did that crazy stuff. It is an insane thing to watch them both back to back, to see the dramatic version of it, and then to literally see a lot of these women who were a part of this very out there, radicalized segment, if you want to call it that, of Mormonism. And that docuseries is really crazy on Netflix. Under the Banner of Heaven is just done to a degree where all the performances are firing on all cylinders. It's being told as this investigative story of this family where an incident has happened, and they unfold it as it goes throughout the episodes, where what they did, they're justifying under their religious beliefs. And it's not just
the commandment of God.
Yeah, doing a murder, but it's also, God didn't say pay taxes. God didn't say I have to pay my parking tickets or all these different things. And you start really unraveling their religious views, because Andrew Garfield is also a Mormon himself, who's kind of struggling with him doing his, police duties, but then also his heavenly duties to Heavenly Father, And I think that there's a really nice back and forth there that I would highly recommend the show. Really great performances. And everyone in the cast of the family, the siblings, there's a Culkin in there, Sam Worthington's in there. There was somebody else. I'm blinking off.
Daisy Edgar Jones.
Daisy Edgar Jones.
Daisy Edgar Jones.
She does a fantastic job. But I highly recommend it. Amanda, talk about why it's year 8 too.
Yeah, same kind of idea. It's just like it really blends that well. I think the thing that sets home the most that this is a man trying to blend his faith with his career, and a career that doesn't necessarily mesh with that kind of religion, is that like he gets a call and they're like, it's an emergency, and he's all in like a huff, but then he has to stop and they have to pray before he leaves. They have to do the evening prayer before he leaves because they can't do it without him. And it's just one of those things. And it's like, this is like an emergency and you're just like you have to take the time, and it's very interesting, and not something that I ever would have considered, because obviously it makes sense that there's people of all different religious denominations that are cops and detectives, but you never really think about people who are in more like fundamentalist types of religions, like Mormonism, like Jehovah's Witnesses, stuff like that, being in those kind of positions, and like how that affects their work. And then with him specifically, it's not so much how he has to ignore things, it's more how he's reckoning his faith with what he's seeing, with what's happening, with what's being like unfolded in front of him. So you get that double layer. It's kind of similar to like Mindhunter, and that it's based on a real story, but then they've created a fictional main character, probably to avoid lawsuits and stuff, or just kind of like weird legality things. So even if all the events are pretty much exactly as they were and all this information's pretty much the same, there is that slight disconnect of characters. But it's just so good. I think Andrew Garfield's just really good at capturing these types of characters of like all different, like you saw it when he was Desmond Dawes in Hacksaw Ridge. There's just like an empathy he can bring to characters that he doesn't necessarily have anything in common with, but he's just interested in the exploration of the character, which I think is like what actors are really supposed to be doing. And he nails it. He's so good.
It was like the last thing he shot too, I think, before he went on his break because of his mom's passing. But I also want to shout out Gil Birmingham, who plays his partner detective.
Yeah.
He brings a lot to the table too, especially because like he realizes where he stands in that Mormon community and their certain beliefs, because as Amanda was saying, they don't believe in outside authority. Because there's someone in authority within their group, and they don't like the competition of anybody else. So that's why they're so against having all that, which is what makes their characters so fascinating to watch. But yeah, definitely put that one on your radar. He killed it, dude. This is my mini series. I don't know. I don't know if y'all looked at your list. How many of the stuff that you have is ongoing? How many of what you have is mini series? That's another thing too, because
I think that's split.
Yeah.
That might be split.
I only got 2 miniseries actually, which I'm a little surprised by.
Oh yeah,
although
same,
one of them feels like a miniseries but is not.
Yeah, I have 3,
I only have 1.
and then I feel like they're anthology. I don't know. We'll get Under the Banner of Heaven too, and it'll take place somewhere else. But
yeah, I feel like that actually would have been higher up on my list, but I just finished that one yesterday, so it was one of the ones I added last second. But like now that I'm thinking, like I won't make you change it, Zach, but I'm looking and I'm like, it could be lower down. But so many of these shows for me are just like, depending on what I'm in the mood for, they're just rotating.
Right. It's coming in that 4.
Change it. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys are saying about the show makes me that much more jealous that I haven't finished it yet, but I guess I'll have to get on that immediately because it sounds very, very good. All right, so I said my number 8 was Abbott Elementary, so we're back to Art for number 7.
I swear to you, Zach, I only have one tie on this list. I swear to you, but it is a duo of comedies here. One is from Showtime, one is from HBO. I Love That For You on Showtime and Hacks on HBO. Yes. I Love That For You just started, and it is the story of a girl who grew up with cancer, ends up, in remission, and goes to apply at a QVC type thing where, they're selling stuff on air, and that's what she grew up watching. But when she almost gets fired, she goes, well, you can't fire me because I'm dealing with my cancer. So it's this big lie she has to carry throughout the entire season with a crazy cast of characters. This is cringe comedy at its purest. I don't think anyone does it better than Byer. Like, she just... Yeah. There's an episode. She has a scene in another show that we'll be mentioning later on, and absolutely killed it in that. So let that be a teaser if you've seen this other show to watch this one right here. By the end of it, I was very surprised how much I thought the storyline really deals in drama, and you have some really great performances in there. Some that I would even like to see get some nominations. But on the other side of things would be Hacks Season 2, which we were scared because is it Hacks Season done? We weren't sure that if they were going to get renewed or not. We loved Hacks, the first one. Season 2 is able to take it on the road, which is such a fascinating way to explore these characters while they're also suing each other. They ended in a place that's like really perfect, and now they kind of have to undo that because they did get greenlit with a Season 3. Hacks was also released bi-weekly, meaning that there was 2 episodes every week, so this thing was done in a month because they didn't even go 10. They went 8 episodes. So that's the reason why I also have them kind of tied there, because you have a Season 2 that's really great and you're confused if it's the ending. And I Love That For You that's barely beginning. But both are shows that I highly, highly, highly would recommend having on your radar. They're hilarious, and they still pack a dramatic punch.
Yeah, these are 2 of the hardest cuts for me. I have them in my honorable mentions, but I think they're both Even Hacks, because that ending like really kind of left a weird taste in my mouth.
So you see what I'm
It
saying?
worked,
Then.
but like,
I'm glad you agree with my tie.
yeah. I also like how short season 2 was bothered me a little bit. Like I wanted to hang out with it more. I wanted to spend more time on the road. I don't know. It's not like a lack of quality. It's just like a want for more quantity.
It's how
I
HBO
guess.
released it.
Yeah, but it's excellent. Every episode of it's good. Also, every episode I love that for you is hilarious. Vanessa Bayer is so good. Yeah, the cameo, like you said, I don't want to spoil it, but that the giving him one line at the end of that episode too is hilarious. I don't know. It's a great show, and I'm glad that we're gonna get more of it. My number 7, I think it's going to come up a little bit later on Art's list. I can't believe I actually have it this low, but I'm going with Atlanta season 3 over here.
It
my
is
7 slot.
7? 6? It's my 5.
All right, so let's talk about it a little bit because it's an excellent season. Like I don't really have any huge issue with it. There's a lot of great episodes. I think the fact that we both have different favorites is also speaks to how high of quality it is, that like there are all these different aspects to it. It's just very like, it's more segmented, I think, than in previous seasons.
100%.
It feels more like they did a series of short films than they did a season of television. And look, I love these short films that they do. I think that the first and fourth episodes are just like extremely compelling, unique visions. Some of the laughs that I get from Atlanta are like deeper, harder, more like devastating laughs than I get from any other show on TV. But yeah, this was maybe my least favorite of all 3 seasons. So ultimately I'm going with it here at number 7. But you got it at number 5.
I do.
What do you think about season 3 of Atlanta?
Yeah, just a little higher. And I agree with you. It's the laughs in the 2 shows that I just had tied are great. But there's something about the laughs and the hidden truths in the stuff that Atlanta gets at you where it catches you off guard with a laugh. And you start questioning, what are you laughing at? That's what makes the show so good. And it continues having that in this 3rd season. My favorite season 2. But I see why people feel differently about it, because I feel season 1 and 2 have a story arc. And with that big break that happened for 3, and I think you had mentioned that they shot back to back and 4 is going to be their finale. He said 4 is going to get back on track to them actually continuing a story. You called this shorts. That was his literal outlook on it. He's like, I'm just going to make these episodes different shorts. I know some people won't vibe with it, and I know it's breaking the entire like course of how the series was going. But he made season 3 an anthology. I like that. I appreciate that. It just, you have to get used to it. And in retrospect, I think a lot of people were like, why is the story just stopping? Why are some characters not appearing until the finale? Really, why are we not following Paperboy to a bigger degree? What are all these like anthology episodes that happen every other series? But I really like what they did with this, because his approach was that it doesn't matter how long we take to get the season out. If you're making a classic show, your classic show doesn't age. So I think there's a lot to enjoy in season 3, but you have to look at it as them just deciding to go the anthology route. But season 4 is supposed to wrap up everything nicely, I guess, the way people have been expecting from Atlanta. But nonetheless, season 3 still delivers. Yeah,
it's still like a show that I pounce on as soon as it's available. So, great stuff. It's one of the best shows of the year for sure. So I have Atlanta season 3 at number 7. Art's got it all the way up at number 5. But let's go back to number 7 and get Amanda's pick.
Umbrella Academy season 3.
Nice.
I haven't caught up with Atlanta yet, so I really want to. But I'm just a big fan of this dysfunctional unit family.
Dysfunctional. Absolutely crazy, yeah.
They're crazy, but then at the end of it, like, it really is always just coming back together. And I'm sure some people are like, how many times can they argue? I'm like, well, how many times do you kind of like disagree with family members, or how many times do you kind of like split hairs, like obviously not to this extent, but like, and kind of have to come back together, because it feels pretty authentic there. But this is also just a group of people who have spent their entire life being traumatized and used and then kind of like chewed up and spit out, and have now been solving back-to-back apocalypse level events. I think it's like 28 days of time.
Thank you, bro. So I had it at 24 because 5's like, this is the third apocalypse in 20 something days. Can I take a nap?
Yeah, something like that. And it's crazy levels of just insanity that they're having to deal with, and it's just never ending, but it doesn't feel exhausting like, oh my god, they do it again, because it all at least logically follows. Like, if this happens, this is why this happens. If you did this is this. There's a thread. This one I specifically really enjoy the like juxtaposition against like the Sparrow Academy and like the idea of perfection versus like their ragtag group that in the end is a stronger unit. I also really like how they handled Elliot Page's character. I was like, they have a lot of options. They can do so many crazy things, and they went for the most authentic. They didn't go crazy. They were just like, I felt like I was, the relationship I had in the last season made me realize that I can be more authentic with myself. Can you call me Victor now? And everyone was just like, hell yeah.
Cool.
Do you feel loved? Because we love you. Like, it's cute. It's good. I like it a lot.
The most subtle thing from the show, surprisingly. It's the best thing that they've handled there. I agree with you. I still think that they're all wacky characters. I don't love this season as much as the previous ones, but I'm still a pretty big fan with it. I love catching all the Easter eggs. I love reading the graphic novel. And there's one on Claws. I don't know if you've caught that one, but it should be up for free on a bunch of different services. Where
nice. I'll check
you kind of see his like backstory. It's a little spin-off story with him. But I agree with you. The family dynamic. Damn, Reggie. That just idea of like, Reggie. Especially what you said with the Sparrows. They sell merch.
Yeah.
But they're not really a family. And the other people aren't as perfect, but at least the Umbrellas try to be a family. So I think that's been the through line that I've connected with it, even with the wacky adventures that they go through.
Nice. So Umbrella Academy Season 3 is number 7 for Amanda. Let's go back to Art for number 6.
The show's so good on Showtime that they needed the Paramount numbers to boost up. So they put Yellowjackets over on Paramount as well. So you don't need Showtime to watch this one. But damn, I have not seen a Showtime show pushed as much as this. Yellowjackets started last year, was able to wrap up at the beginning of this year. And it's like, I know Lost gets thrown a lot, and I'm not saying that it's the newest Lost, but it at least is the best island show. There's a lot of The Wilds, I'd say like Outer Banks kind of deals with like, there's a lot of like teens out in the wilderness, and I think nothing beats Yellowjackets. It does a great job of telling its story through flashbacks and through the present time. I think the cast that they have to play the younger versions and the older versions just works so well. You almost like struggle with like, who's better, the younger version or the older version? Or sometimes you like an older version better than the younger version. I don't know. I think it's just a really good cast of characters that they have with each other. I really like the mystery, and I'm very excited for season 2. So Yellowjackets, so good that it's on Paramount Plus if you have that.
It's my number 4.
Nice. Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Yellowjackets is really good.
I like, I'm totally blanking on the names now, but I like Juliette Lewis's character.
Same.
Yeah. And both timelines. I think she's consistently my favorite between both timelines.
The thing is, that character has really good actresses playing both of them.
Yes,
like they do
I think that
a lot
helps too.
of stuff with their facial expressions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They did a really good job for most of the characters, getting like the younger versions compared
Christina
to the older
Ricci's?
versions. Like, yeah, like
yo, this is crazy. Yeah.
What?
No,
Yeah. So like they did a really good job. I like it a lot. This is one of those shows. So I had watched The Wilds with my mom because she thought it looked interesting, and then I watched Yellowjackets, and then Wilds came out with season 2, and I was like, oh, we can watch that if you want. She was like, is Yellowjackets season 2 out? And I'm like, Mom, it just finished. Not yet, but yeah, so it's good. I think it does a really good job laying out its mystery in a way that kind of like you understand character motivations, but then it's just giving you a little bit of information as you're going, as it's piecing it all together, and it rewards you as you're going, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved Yellowjackets. I ultimately put it in my honorable mentions just because it's a crowded year.
Yeah,
but I can't wait for more of that show. It's a show that I'm like keeping my fingers crossed that now that they've laid the foundation so well, that season 2 is just going to go crazy, that we're going to get like an awesome jam-packed season of stuff. So cannot wait for more Yellowjackets. That's a great pick at number 6, a cool pick at number 4 for Amanda too. My number 6 is a different show. Different kind of feeling I get from the show. I feel like as I'm getting older, I cry a little bit more at movies and TV. Maybe it's just like because I'm getting older, I'm more cognizant of how fleeting everything is. But there was a moment on episode 3 of Pachinko that really, really got me. There's 2 older Korean women who are now living in Japan, including the one played by Yoon Yoo-jung, and they're sitting down for a meal with one of their grandsons, and they're eating rice, when one of them notices the rice tastes different, because it's not Japanese rice, it's Korean rice. And Yoon Yoo-jung gets emotional at the taste of her homeland, but her grandson, played by Jin Ha, doesn't taste the difference. And the idea of these 2 women relating to each other about an experience that will soon be lost to people forever just made me weep instantly. Damn. And I have a rule that if your show makes me cry about a bowl of rice, you're in my top 10.
That is his rule.
That's
He's
the
got
rule.
it in his house. It's right next to the kitchen. It says, if I cry for a bowl of rice.
Yeah.
No, you've
From
been
what I've
recommending
seen
this
from
one.
that one episode.
I have to hop on it. Talk about the filmmakers behind it, dude.
Yeah, so it's every episode is directed by either Kogonada, who we mentioned on our best movies of the year list, because not a bad filmmaker, the guy behind After Young, and the other guy who directed half the episode is Justin Chong, who's behind Blue Bayou last year, another really acclaimed movie. But I also want to shout out what's her name, Soo-hyo, who runs the show and writes it and adapted this novel really beautifully. The show does this amazing thing where the novel, I believe, is a linear story, but the show hops back and forth through time across like 4 different generations, juggling languages. It's really beautifully done. And yeah, just one of the shows that I've responded to the most since I've watched it. It's I think it's very dense, so it's not the easiest to just like sit down and binge, but it's just so beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So Pachinko, I got at my number 6 on the best TV of 2022 so far. Amanda, what do you have at number 6 on your list?
I'm gonna go with Stranger Things Part
Cool.
A, I guess. Yeah, I've always liked Stranger Things. I always have a good time watching it. It's another one of those ones that for whatever reason, I always seem to be visiting my parents when I either have time to watch it or when it comes out. So like it's like me and my mom's thing. And this one, like I feel like it took a few episodes to really kick in. So like I'm watching it and I'm like it's pretty good, but I don't understand why everyone's saying it's like the best season yet. And then it starts kicking in. So like it went from like, oh, we'll watch one episode before bed, and then my mom's kind of like, one more episode? One more episode? And it's really good. I think it's I do think it does a good job bringing the separate storylines together, because obviously you've got like some of them in California and you've got some of them still in Hawkins, and then they're just kind of trying to split the difference. I think some storylines are a little bit more interesting than others, and some characters I feel like are going through more interesting processes than others, but thankfully for the most part it's my favorite characters getting the long straw, not the short straw. So I am really enjoying it so far. I'm very excited for the last 2 episodes.
Who's your favorite character?
Awesome.
Or characters?
Max now. Max is my favorite character.
No, yeah, you're right.
I'm also really big on Robin. I'm big on Robin as well as a character. I feel like Will keeps getting the short end of the stick though. Every time I see Will, I'm like, why are they doing Will like this? Mike, stop being a jerk.
It would have been better if he died in season 1. He would be less disrespected. I'm really liking Steve. You better not take Steve.
Yes, I love Steve. I'm a big fan of Steve. I love Steve and Robin, and then honestly, so basically Steve and Robin, Dustin and Steve. That's a great little trio.
Right there,
That's a little trio.
I'm always gonna feel a little something for Dustin. He's a cool guy.
And I'm just a big fan of Max. I thought she was like a really good addition. Sometimes it's really hard to make add-on characters liked, but people seem like a really big fan of. It's hard to make a character that went from being like the bully that everyone hates to being like the beloved tamer of the children of Steve, and have people on board with it. So
having the most iconic episode too. So I'm surprised. The best thing I could give it is that I've been a hater for seasons 1, 2, and 3. So my surprise when 4 came out, and I really like what they did. I think they went back to the drawing board, did the same thing that they had with the characters, but finally were able to have like the most cohesive story. Not for Will, because Will will always be disrespected, but I like what they did with everybody else. And I'm really excited to see how they end it with the 4-hour episodes that they got coming up.
Yeah, definitely a big statement of how good the show was this year, that I think both Art and I turned it on basically just skeptically and out of more morbid curiosity and ended up really liking it. Even though I think we both have it only in our honorable mentions,
That's
right?
a big jump, bro. You know, it's like going from like, for me, an F to like a
huge.
C+.
From worst of
that's
to
like a pretty good jump. You gotta, I really liked it.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty cool season. Well, I'm also very, very curious for those final episodes. Before we get into our top 10s, let's take a moment to thank the InterCutie Plus patrons, those wonderful people who are supporting the show. They are Ewan, Julietta, Garrett, Tim, Elizabeth, Josh, Ashley, and Marion, as well as our Academy level members, Tushar, Cademan, Connor, Pete, Sean, and May. And of course, a big thanks to the producer level patrons, Awkward and Uden Veer. Thanks again for all the support. And a reminder that you too can become a member at patreon.com/intercutpod, where you can sign up for patron benefits like early access to the Intercut episode outlines, access to private channels on our Intercut Discord, and an invitation to our monthly patron Google meetings. We'll have to talk about like everybody's favorites and least favorites maybe of the year so far on our next Google meeting in July. So yeah, make sure to head over to Patreon if you want to hop onto some of those benefits. But Art, let's get back into the lists. Actually, we got to pass you by because you already talked about your number 5, which is Atlanta season 3. So I'll circle back to me. But I'll save the talk for later because I have a feeling that Severance Season 1 is going to be higher on at least one of your lists. Yeah. I got it at number 5. Okay. Very good show, but very competitive year. So, Amanda, what do you have at number 5 on your list?
Peacemaker. I really liked it. They finally figured out what to do with John Cena, and by they I mean James Gunn, like the character.
James Gunn specifically figured out.
Yeah, because he was trying to do the Rock thing, where he was like, "I'm just gonna act in a bunch of these like kid movies and then try to be an action star," and like that's just not working for him. So James Gunn was like, "I'm gonna turn you into this like hero who will kill people in the name of peace," and it's just gonna be so goofy and over the top. And I really like the character in the Suicide Squad movie. But this the show really just kind of takes it to this like next level. That he's an interesting character. It's like a really interesting just piece of work, and it really does all found on him. But then his side characters and stuff are all really interesting as well. Like everything kind of going on around in the show is pretty fun too. And then I also just really like that James Gunn directed and wrote all of the show. It wasn't like, okay, well, the character did really well in a movie, we're going to take it away and give it to someone else. No, James Gunn was like, they did it because it's him. They were like, shit, we know you're kind of going back to Marvel for the Guardians, but you want to party a little bit more with some of these other characters?
Threw him a bag.
And
got to work.
So you get this kind of like flawed character who just really wants to be good, who's always just doing like really fucked up things and just really inappropriate, but like kind of also has like the golden retriever heart of gold type thing going on. So I was surprised at how much I ended up liking it.
Yeah, it seems fun. That's another one, like I was saying, I want to catch up with more, catch up on that show. It's also got a pretty delightful opening credit sequence. And now that I've mentioned Pachinko, I also remembered that's got maybe my favorite opening credit sequence of the year so far. Would you say Peacemaker is your favorite of the shows you've seen, Amanda?
Peacemaker is definitely up there. I also really like the Severance intro, just for like how like cool it is. The Severance one is like, what the hell? Great. But no, the Peacemaker one's like the most I find rewatchable, and it's just, it's a fun little rock song and a cringy dance. It's great. Like,
you know what? I like the Abbott Elementary theme because it includes the bus. The bus's motor like does kind of like the bass, the rewatch that one. I think it's just this little subtle thing, but I love every single time that she kind of incorporates that into the theme. But Peacemaker,
and it's like one of those that the Abbott Elementary one is one of those like Scrubs where it's not very long, but it gets you right into the world of the show.
Yeah, it's literally just like a riff. But Peacemaker is one that I do need to hop on because it's called Peacemaker, but the fans, they've been bullying me to ask me, why have you not seen this show?
Oh, no.
So I have a question for you. When you're comparing it, because this is what, like the first... DC's weird because their animation stuff. I know Harley and Quinn, people love that. This is like the first live action. They've had like a bunch of live actions, but it's like Doom Patrol and Titans that aren't really connected. So knowing that this is connected
it's like
to the movies...
CW stuff,
how would you compare Peacemaker having movie counterparts to the Marvel stuff that has movie counterparts?
Ooh, I just feel like it's doing a different thing, but
more successfully.
Because I'm really weird with the Marvel stuff. I'm really split. Like, I really liked WandaVision because of like the character exploration of her, even though the show itself was flawed. I feel like Peacemakers are like more consistent show, and I think it's in the direction that DC should be trying to push in. That they seem very hesitant to let happen in a lot of ways, just because I think they want the big epic, they want that big epic countering, whereas they should maybe be going for some of these like smaller, like more R-rated projects, because they do have a lot of the more R-rated characters or propensity to be R-rated characters. It's hard to compare when it's only one, but I would say that I like Peacemaker more than Loki. I like it more than Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Most
Marvel probably
shows?
Most of them, honestly. It's very different from WandaVision, but I think I like it more than most of the Marvel shows.
You like it more than Suicide Squad?
Very cool.
Or the Suicide Squad?
I think so, actually, because I don't like the fuck, I can't remember its name anymore. The starfish. I don't like that.
Really?
I like parts of it. I've just never. I don't like big monster things. We've been through this. It's why I don't really care about any of the Godzilla movies.
Oh, that's fine.
And it's why, like, some of the Jurassic Park stuff, the direction they were going in the middle of one, and I was like, no, stop with the cloning, please. But yeah. So I think that's my issue. I think Peacemaker, I just like that it's a little bit more contained, a little bit more like character driven and stuff. But I like the Suicide Squad movie a lot, actually.
Okay.
I think James Gunn's very good at being himself, honestly, and just bringing empathy to characters that don't necessarily seem like they should be very empathetic.
Well, that's the best part of the Guardians. I'm gonna have to boost this one up.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll catch up with Peacemaker and end up talking about it. If not by the end of the year, then hopefully before then.
Messes up our whole list. Zach Peacemaker added to my list. 4.
Amanda's number 5 was Peacemaker. Let's go back to Art for his number 4.
Apple TV coming in for the first round right here. It will have another one.
Let's go, Tim Cook.
WeCrashed. I liked it.
Ooh,
We're talking about
Okay.
terrible people, miserable people going out and being in this excess. This is like the closest to a Wolf of Wall Street type character we've gotten in a minute. I don't know how a man can give us Morbius and then give us WeCrashed finale on the same month, but I thought that they absolutely killed it in WeCrashed. The story of WeWork, and specifically the founder Adam and his wife, who really helped out with a lot of it, and just seeing this crazy, just slick talker be able to get away with so much. And I find that stuff really fascinating, and just the way that the show is edited together, and then just the back and forth between him and his wife specifically, who I think Anne Hathaway plays beautifully, because you have someone who is like living in the shadow of Gwyneth Paltrow in real life, but then at the same time wants to be just as big as her husband is in this job that she very much was able to create. And I don't know, I just found the whole show to be fascinating. These very eclectic characters, and I would watch it again. I think it doesn't praise them and doesn't condone what they do. And I've been really liking, that Wolf of Wall Street type thing where you're able to really get into the headspace of them and for a second believe, were they trying to do good? Or were they really spending like billions of dollars way more than they ever had? And I think they play it to a T. It showcases Jared Leto can be a good actor when he actually tries. And I think he becomes the freaking role, dude. WeCrashed on Apple TV.
It's on my list.
I'm also just want to watch this because Anne Hathaway, I feel like, is so incredible, and we haven't gotten a lot of big performances from her
Some of the
lately.
best she's ever done, dude. They're not.
I got to get to the Navi episode, man. I hear she goes full Navi.
She does. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, WeCrashed. That's a good pick at number 4. My number 4 is a show that I'm maybe a little mixed on, like, how good it is necessarily from a moment-to-moment basis, but it's a show that I was always really excited to watch.
Space
and
Force
that's something
2.
that I would say about 2 different HBO shows, but I don't have Euphoria on my list because I ultimately didn't think this season was very good. I do have Winning Time on my list because I was thrilled and excited and just really into every single episode of the Adam McKay produced show about the Los Angeles Lakers, the Showtime Lakers dynasty. I don't know why HBO chickened out.
You know why?
I know why, but I don't know why they're bigger than Showtime. Like
That would have been the
like
craziest
Trump
flex.
move
Yes, I agree.
right?
Dope.
Right? But Winning Time's okay, and maybe it helps so that you can make Winning Time Season 2, which we heard is coming. I don't know. I really vibed with the show, the eccentricity of it, the stylistic flexibility of it, the way that they would cut between not just like different angles but different film stocks in the same scene. It might be a lot extra, and I'm not sure how motivated all of it is, but I do think it really helps give you this feeling of this is almost like footage from the time, right? Like you really feel like you're immersed in the time period. They've also got, I think a lot of times it can help to have a very dynamic performer, and this show is just chock full of them. So many good actors in very broadly written character roles. Mm-hmm. Like the real life people have been very offended by their depiction in the show, but that's good.
That's good.
I agree a show that's willing to make the real life characters into more like caricatures, because like this is ultimately fictionalized, and I think if you remember that these are fictionalized versions of real events, you can lean into the extraness, the drama of the show, and really appreciate it for what it is. I know that whenever that Winning Time was the show that I was most hungry to binge once I started it this year. So that's why I got it at number 4.
I have it a little higher, and I agree with everything that you say. That thing about the different film stocks is so funny. Yeah. And the way they mix that with the editing. Like what he's talking about is they're filming this obviously on like film, but it looks clean. And then someone will do a reaction, and they'll zoom in on them. So they'll be like, so a dude comes in to visit the coaches. I say a dude. Magic Johnson comes in to visit a coach, and he thinks that the girl who's there is just like a really young girlfriend. And then she starts speaking, because it's her father, about him like dad. So what it does is in that scene, the moment he starts hearing her speak about this guy who she thinks he's dating but is really her father, it zooms in on him in like 8mm film reel. There's just something that it does in the editing style where it's almost like it has the effect that The Office did originally, where it zooms in on them doing the reaction shots that everyone has copied to this day. I love Abbott Elementary. It's in my top 10. It is one of the things that Abbott does, and I'm like, I get it's a crutch to do, but it really doesn't make any sense. Right. This is Zach, the first show that has found a way to get that essence of everybody wanting to do the Office stare, and finally did something new with it. It is such a beautiful thing they do with these episodes.
You know what it is? And I honestly didn't think about this until this moment, but it almost feels like in a real movie when they cut to the real footage, right? Because they change the film stock in a way
where it makes it feel
it's jarring.
Time?
It's like, oh,
yeah.
It's really cool. It's a really cool effect. But it's just a very fun show too. It's the way they're able to leave every episode on the crazy cliffhanger is stunning, given how much of it is based on reality. Cool show. Winning Time. I got it at number 4 on my list, which takes us to Amanda's number 4, which she said was Yellowjackets season 1. But I'm wondering, is Yellowjackets Mom the Jedi's number 1 show of 2022 so far?
Yes, I believe absolutely it is. Yeah, she's a big fan, big fan of Yellowjackets. She was like, because it wasn't all out when I was over there for the holidays, and she was catching up on it before I was. Which is impressive because she could only watch it when my dad wasn't around because he had no context. So, yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else about Yellowjackets, or are you just pumped for season 2?
Just pumped for season 2. Yeah, really like it. They nailed a lot of what, I don't know, they nailed a lot of things that I like in different shows all in one.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, let's bounce back to you for number 3.
My number 3 is a season 3, one that I know is going to be way higher on your list. Barry.
Yep.
He made me watch it. He came in every week and he said, "Art, have you seen Barry?" That's all. That's the only reason we do a lot of these shows is just for him to catch up, to see if I've seen Barry. And then he goes, "All right, let's just record a show with it." And I did. I binged all of season 2. I binged all of season 3. It is a fantastic series, a fantastic show. It is surprising that I have 2 more ahead of it. But we're at a point right here in my top 5 where every single one of these shows are just... We were talking about how difficult it is to catch up on 10 episodes. Any of these shows I'd rewatch, even though I know I have more stuff to watch. That's how good all these shows are. And Barry is, without an exception, that, because I rewatched multiple episodes and definitely multiple scenes in season 3 that are fantastic. But Zach's got it a little higher, I know. So we'll be coming back to it. Barry season 3.
All right. Barry, a great pick. Your number 3. My number 3, I don't know if you have gotten around to it yet, Art, but Amanda mentioned it as one of the ones she wished she had caught. It's We Own This City, the limited series from David Simon and George Pelecanos, another show about crime in Baltimore. It's the guys who made The Wire. I mean, it's hard to really ask for better pedigree than that, especially given that they're returning to Baltimore for the show. It's really the closest that we'll ever get to experiencing The Wire season 6, because it takes a similar approach to how The Wire was really like giving you pieces to the puzzle. A lot of shows, I think, are almost like top down in that they focus on a main character, and that main character has an unnaturally large sway over the events of the world. And David Simon and George Pelecanos are more intelligent than that, especially when it comes to depicting the nature of crime and policing and things like that. They know that there's all these different elements at play, and one layer of failure happens, it has reverberations all the way down the line. And even though John Bernthal is ostensibly our main character here, there are long stretches where we're not following the Wayne Jenkins character, because you gotta find out like what's happening with the crime review board, what's happening with the mayor election, what's happening with the police commissioner. You need to know all the pieces to understand the puzzle, and get matched with Ronaldo Marcus Green coming off of King Richard as the director. You also get a little bit more visual flair than I think you're used to in the Wire type of environment. So man, I was really stunned by We Own This City. I think this is like one of the best miniseries I've seen in a while. So I got it on number 3. It's a really great show.
That, Better Call Saul, and you had another one on your Pachinko. We Own the City. Yeah. Those are like the ones that I knew I was just not going to be able to finish watching. But, you know, Green he directed one of my favorite movies from Sundance a couple years ago with Monsters and Men. And to be able to have a whole series talking about this stuff, I need to get on that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Hopefully by the end of the year. All right, so I got We Own This City at number 3. Let's go back to Amanda for her number 3.
The Boys, season 3.
All right, season 3.
I just like The Boys. It's good. I think this season's kind of going. It's been going in an interesting direction where it's like we're seeing characters kind of going against things they've always said they stood for the sake of the greater good, and like what they, or at least in their mind, the greater good, and like what they think the ultimate end game needs to be for certain situations, which is always really interesting to see people fall down that way, to go from like literally just despising something so viscerally and then being willing to kind of like become that to fight it, is an interesting thing to be exploring for sure. I think this is the season that, for whatever reason, I don't know why it took this long, where some people are kind of being like, hey, they're not supposed to make fun of people like that, but they've been doing it the entire time, and I don't know how they haven't caught up on it.
It's that thing where they don't realize it before, but then it might get a little too close, and then all of a sudden it's a problem.
Now it's some of it's a little more subtle. Some of it's kind of like, oh no, they shouldn't be going that far into the politics of it. And then some of it is people literally thinking that like Homelander was ever supposed to be like a good or cool character.
Bruh.
And I'm like, he's licking milk out of a bottle in the first season. Like, why do you resonate with this guy?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the point when he's dating the Nazi,
that's the other
we should
one
like maybe
too.
have thought twice.
That's what I mean.
But you saw the entire season with it being released weekly. It's like you were saying, it's always fascinating to see people come on and be like, "This is how you do a show without politics," and I'm like,
"What?"
You watching the same
Yeah,
show?
seriously, the whole
Like, do
show
I
is
have
politics.
do I have to like mention the specific like news channels that they have in there? They literally quote stuff from real life, and I don't know that's a thing that always fascinates me when people go like, this is how you make a show that isn't bringing in all that. I'm like, this is probably the show that's bringing it in the most.
The most. This is a political satire show told through superheroes,
especially when it's
like,
making fun of people's specific politics who like the show. And I was like, that's rare. That's
Right.
probably the most fascinating thing.
Like, if anything,
Yeah.
this is the show that's most directly addressed Donald Trump out of anything on TV.
Yeah.
And that The Boys is the show doing that is stunning.
And
to
the
me.
most important of them all, the Snyder Cut. So, it's just really getting into all the nitty-gritty of everything out there. But,
Yeah.
I haven't caught up
Yeah.
on it completely, but I'll see how it ends up on my list at the end of the year.
Yeah, I was expressing some skepticism on a couple weekend must-watches, or couple weekend must-watches ago. I'm back in.
Okay, cool.
It's a good season.
Yeah,
Let's
there was
go.
like one episode where something happened or a couple things, and I was all like, is it kind of, and then it's back. So we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so The Boys, Amanda's number 3. Let's go to Art for his number 2. I'm very curious. I feel like I know what are in your top 2, but not the order.
Guess.
I mean, is this the winning time slot?
It's the Apple slot.
Severance.
Oh.
Is that what you had as my other
Really?
number 2, or what else did you think I had as my top 2?
I mean, is this the Severance slot then?
Severance, I
'Cause
think,
I'm
is
here for
a
Severance as well.
perfect season of television that came from Apple out of nowhere. Got everybody hooked on it.
Wow.
Everybody hyped on it. It's a show that you could rewatch and catch even more clues. Has me really excited for season 2. You can enjoy the show without looking any deeper into it, but the more deeper you look into it, it is riddled with a bunch of different types of things. We were talking about Lost for Yellowjackets because of its setting and the idea of them focusing in on the characters with a little bit of mystery. This is just full out lore, mystery. What is going on here? There is the idea of, again, the others. You have the inside group and you have the outside group. And that's, I think, one of the things that Lost really propelled on. And to see it in a lot of these different shows and to always have that Lost-esque quote be given to them, I think that this is the series that really holds on to that idea of wanting teasing you with just enough, but wanting you to get more. Practically leaving you with an answer to the question you have, but not confirming it until like the next season. And I think every episode in this series made you want to watch the next one. It is beautifully shot. The performances are great. And I don't know. I'm not a person who likes dance sequences. And there's a couple of picks that we've had on these 2 episodes where I don't mind the dance sequences. I don't know if that's just me getting older. I don't know if that's just really good dance sequences, So big thumbs up on Severance. If you haven't caught it, try to go in as blank as possible. Just know that it is one of the best things that Apple has released and really has been making them a player. They've been knocking on HBO's door is all I could say, because it's definitely up there.
Yeah. You can go.
No, I was just going to say that I think that Severance is probably the winner of like best premise of 2022 so far. Like,
especially
if you just
what we came
sell
out of,
somebody, if you just say that premise to anybody, they're going to be intrigued by. I mean, my parents are people who are like not people who really vibe with any kind of like paranormal, sci-fi, like non of this earth type of storytelling. But telling them that like immediately you get the world of possibilities so wide. Everybody, I think, can relate to the experience of like wanting to separate yourself from your work self, and then there's just so much to dive in on there. And Severance hasn't disappointed given that plot. So that's probably the highest compliment you can give it.
Yeah, that's why they like it. They know it's real. It's on the horizon.
Yeah, I remember, like, I just saw everybody tweeting about it and talking about it, and I just didn't look into it at all. But then before going to con, I downloaded it to be like my in-flight entertainment. So I just started watching it, and I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And then you get into it, and because I thought it was just kind of like, I thought it was like an office drama based on like the pictures I was seeing. And then I was like, this is crazy. And I was explaining it, and like, she was just like, oh my God, that is crazy. And I was like, yeah, and then it just keeps going and going, and because you're right, when you first start watching, you're like, oh wow, like honestly, being able to like shut off for like the 8 hours you're at work and not have that really even remember that, but then you start seeing all the other sides of where that can go wrong, and like what is it like for the person who is working and all of that. And again, it's kind of looking into this entire idea of like individuality and what it actually means to be the human, like the real you, the actual person. It's so fascinating, and honestly, the first season barely gives you anything, and it only starts giving you answers. Yeah, in that last episode is when you just start getting a little bit, but in any other show that would have been like episode 2 or 3, and here it's like that's the cliffhanger, and it's basically the whole first season is a tease to get you invested for like the future season, but in a good way, not in a way that you're like, well, fuck this, like in a good way. Yeah, big fan.
Really great show. I had it at number 5. Art's got it at number 2. My number 2 is a show that we talked about a little bit even last year, but it didn't wrap up until January of 2022. So I got to give a little bit more love to Station 11, the really beautiful miniseries about a post-apocalyptic world in which people are figure out a way, whether that's through traveling Shakespeare companies or museums to civilization in an airport or holding up in a hotel room until you run out of supplies. I mean, it's for a show about a devastating plague wiping out most of humanity. There's just this weird optimism that runs through it that I found really inspiring. And I guess that's a lot of it is credit to the team behind it. I know it's got some great directors with Hiro Murai and Jeremy Podesa, who did a couple episodes. Patrick Somerville, I think, is the guy who wrote the series. He comes off of experience on The Leftovers and a couple of other shows that I really like. I don't know. There's just something really magical to the way that this show would like weave in and out of different storylines, come to characters, put them away for a couple weeks, and then bring them back. That made me feel like very involved with the world. It's just a very special show. I don't know if I even have the appropriate words for it, but I was so moved, and probably the biggest cry I've had at TV this year was like a reuniting that happens late in this series. It's just so good. It's so good. I loved it a lot.
Have you had the chance to catch it, Amanda?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
But
it's the one with Mackenzie Davis, right?
It's his girl.
Yes, that was like one of those ones I was trying to catch before the end of last year, and then I just didn't get to it, and it wasn't done yet. So I was like, oh, well, I guess it doesn't need to go on the list. So.
And then my boy's in it early on in the series, because you actually have a Mexican in the show.
Himesh Patel?
No. My other boy.
Oh.
You got a Mexican in the show.
Oh, is it?
Who's named Arthur.
Oh, Gael Garcia Bernal.
Who loves Chicago. And he's always saying, listen.
Yeah. Boy.
So I was like, damn, that's my boy. And then he dies, and I'm like, oh, no, I got to go get my heart checked then. Oh, no.
Jeez,
But, it's a really good show. I know Alina loves it. I know it's in her top 10. She is fascinated by the show.
Nice.
I really like it as well, and it probably would have been one of my honorable mentions. I'm still a couple episodes from the finale, so I haven't seen the big scenes that you've been talking about yet, but Hiro Murai's direction, dude.
I mean, I love a show that will take like a fascinating element that you could dive way deeper on and just have it be like the subtext or like a small detail. It's sort of like After Yang, what we were talking about with that, in that there's so many details where you could just go follow that for an episode if you wanted to. But the power of the show is that it's choosing the right moments. And yeah, also, I thought it was really, really special.
A really smart way to do Shakespeare.
Yes, yeah.
It's a very clever way to
modernizing in a weird way and using it to embody the character's emotions.
They're clever.
It's really good. It's really smart. All right, so my number 2, Station 11, another HBO show miniseries.
S's.
Let's go to Amanda's number 2.
My number 2 is Severance.
Severance.
Very cool.
Station Severance. Look at all those S's.
Mm-hmm.
Is Severance the show that you are most anticipating returning, or is that your number 1?
I think this one I am actually the most anticipated for, just because of how many mysteries it's leaving open. So
damn.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Yeah, they definitely, like you guys were talking about a little bit when Art brought it up, but it does this really cool thing where it just sort of like hints at a whole world beneath the surface. Like, it's not going to explain the goats, but there are goats, and maybe we'll get an explanation eventually.
Just like
but
polar bears.
in the meantime, you can let your brain go and start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's a direct homage. I don't know.
I think it's tied with Yellowjackets for me. It may be edging it just a little bit, but I'm really looking forward to Yellowjackets, how they're going to build theirs, and Severance. But yeah, because my number one is technically an anthology, so I'd have to say that. Both of those are tied for what I'm looking forward to.
Nice. Cool.
All right, well, before we get to that number one, let us do the honorable mentions. Art, why don't you kick us off? What are the TV shows that just missed your cut?
You had brought up, what did you just bring up? Takes place in Chicago? HBO?
Station 11
takes place in Chicago. Shining Girls takes place in Chicago. And the newly released The Bear takes place in Chicago. I think they're all really, really good shows. By the end of the year, maybe some of them will get up a little bit higher, but I would recommend all three of those. The Baby over on HBO I thought was a really good flip on this Rosemary-style story that I would highly recommend. It's not fully a horror. It's more like a drama and definitely has comedy elements in there.
Nice.
As We See It, season 1 over on Amazon Prime is a group of young adults who all have autism, and they're all just trying to live together, and they have like a guardian, and they all have these different like wants and needs that they go through, and I thought they did a great job with that. Euphoria season 2. I don't care. Everyone tuned in every week for a reason. It's not better than season 1.
I got it in the honorable mentions.
But it was fun, We saw a docuseries out of Sundance that was really in the vein of one of my favorite pieces of content of all time, which is OJ Made in America, and this one was called We Need to Talk About Cosby, and it was made in that same sense of having, was it 4 or 5 episodes,
good call,
really breaking down not just the figure of Cosby, but just the impact in pop culture, and then in terms of race, and just, everything that comes with that. I would highly recommend that over on Showtime. But the last ones that I would bring up is Single Drunk Female is perfect in that Abbott Elementary. What's the other one we just said? Because I keep wanting to call it Uncorked, but that's a different Wayne movie. Grand Crew.
Grand Crew, yeah.
There's no drinking in this because this is about a girl, a young woman who is she's in AA and she's trying to fix her life. And this was a series that I saw a couple of episodes and I was like, it's kind of decent. But Alina really connected with it. And by the second half of it, you really grow with the characters. And I thought they did a fantastic job with this series, and I would highly recommend having that one on your radar as a part of that Abbott Elementary just sitcom, putting it on in the background. But the last one that I would have on here is Undone Season 2 over on Amazon Prime. This came out around the same time Russian Doll came in. They both were 2019 releases for Season 1. Season 2s have come out. Like I said, I thought both of these were supposed to be trilogies, and they've kind of wrapped them done, but I would still highly recommend checking out Undone, same way that I recommended Russian Doll. Just really good protagonists that you follow in this crazy world where they're really jumping into different realities. So Undone Season 2, wrapping up my list of my honorable mentions.
All right, cool. Amanda, what do you have as your honorable mentions?
So I didn't end up being able to finish The Bears, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far because that just dropped a few days ago, so I just haven't had a chance. Our Flag Means Death is a fun one. I like it's pirates, and it's like this gentleman decides he wants to be a pirate, so it's a very quirky dynamic there. Like if you're kind of familiar with Taika's humor with things like What We Do in the Shadows. It just, you get the similar kind of vibe there. So I really liked it. It's a good one. And then I'll have Euphoria on my runner-up too. I think there is a lot of issues with it. I do agree with a lot of the comments that Sam kind of started not telling the story authentically from the characters on screen, and it almost felt like a lot of the stuff he was tackling felt like it was a reaction to how he was being perceived in the world. And then you saw it the most in Malcolm and Marie, but I feel like some of that definitely trickled down into Euphoria. And I do think there's just a lot of in my opinion, unnecessary time spent on weird music sequences that it just feels like it feels like one of the like a rock opera, but not rock, but like one of those things, like the music operas where there's a little bit of story and then the extended music sequences kind of felt like that sometimes, but it's still really solid television.
Damn watchable
TV, that Euphoria.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Cool group of honorable mentions. I have Euphoria on mine as well. I Love That For You and Hacks, which I've mentioned as well. Grand Crew, which we talked about, and talking about some comedies. I also have Girls 5 Eva season 2. Just jokes per minute. Nobody has the Faye and Carlock team defeated. So a lot of very funny stuff. I'll mention Space Force season 2 here because nobody else anywhere is going to mention Space Force season 2. Stranger Things season 4. I got that into my honorable mentions as well. Excited to see that wrap up. The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. I don't know if a lot of people were watching this miniseries on Apple. I don't know if it's like the best show, but I actually thought Sam Jackson was quite compelling on it. Dominique Fishback as well. So I watched the whole thing at least. Russian Doll season 2 I got on my honorable mentions. Yellowjackets season 1 just barely missed the cut for me, but the last cut that I had, the hardest cut for me to make was the Dropout. I actually was really compelled by this telling of the Theranos story, and particularly Amanda Seyfried's weirdo performance as Elizabeth Holmes that I really hope she gets nominated for an Emmy for. It's just a really interesting show. My favorite of these shows about the bad CEOs, and I think it has a lot to say about work culture and grind culture, the idea of making yourself and your existence about your professional achievements. So there's a lot there, and I think it's a pretty interesting show, even if it maybe is going to hopefully would come back for season 2, because there's still more to talk about with Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah, half of these, it was Super Pumped, that one, and WeCrashed, where it's just like, there could be a part 2. Their stories aren't done.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in that one where the text ends up adding something that just happened the week prior in her case.
Right.
So it's like,
that's so funny.
I'm sorry, you were gonna say?
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, I remember we saw Out for Blood. That was like the first movie we saw back at 2018 Sundance. And back then we had already known that they apparently Jennifer Lawrence was signed to do a movie, which still hasn't come yet. So I think it's really interesting that
and this show was supposed to be Kate McKinnon.
Oh wow. Okay. I see it actually more so than Amanda Seyfried, honestly, but that's interesting. But it's really interesting to me that the show has managed to come out and finish before there's even any inkling that the movie's coming at all. Yeah, started.
I think Adam McKay's maybe moved on to other things, but I'm not sure.
Interesting.
All right, so let's get to our favorite show of the year so far. Art, kick us off.
Said his name.
What is in your number one spot?
Adam McKay. Winning Time. The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. Yeah. You mentioned this probably going anthology and going to different playing teams and such, and I think that would be very fascinating because you could go do, I think you said it was going to be the Lakers in the early 2000s. Would love to see them even attempt to try the Bulls in the 90s. I would love to see something about the Pistons in the 80s. There is so much that you could do. Hell, Golden State, after a couple more seasons, it's not like you can't do Golden State fresh off of a lot of them probably retiring, but what they do here and the way that they film it, I think is incredible. There was a lot of behind the scenes in the talks of, because this isn't just covering Magic Johnson, it's also covering like literally the man who put the whole thing together and was running the team and was able to really reinvent the NBA for what it is now, and it being like a showcase, having the Lakers girls there, having celebrities show up, which is now the biggest thing of having the seats in the court, right? How many times do you like search up a celebrity and half the Drake memes that you get are from him on the court side, Jack Nicholson on the court side, and just like the invention of what the sporting event could be. I find it really fascinating, and I know that there was a fallout between Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. And I hate it. I really do. I think what Adam McKay did was bogus in replacing Will Ferrell, who loves, who's been wanting to be this for the longest time, and putting
loves the Lakers.
Putting what's his name in it?
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly. You don't do that to your boy. It needed to be John C. Reilly. It needed to be John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly's so good on the show.
My goodness. If this is a miniseries and it's going up against WeCrashed, which I love, and I think Jared Leto killed it, I'm a little scared. I'm a little worried. That's going to be... I'm going to get my popcorn pop for that day because it is going to come down to the wire. I think both of them give incredible performances in this, and the show is everything it needed to be. Maybe not worth breaking the friendship, but Pretty close, I guess. Highly, highly, highly recommend Winning Time, even if you're not a basketball fan. I think it is it's HBO at its finest.
Yeah, like sometimes I feel like a great documentary is great because it's about something that's super interesting. And likewise, this is a show that's just packed so many interesting things into it. And from the outside, if you're not too familiar with it, you might be like, well, how can it be that much stuff if we're just talking about the Lakers? But it's more than that, because it's the birth of a type of stadium and environment and the incorporation of a certain type of celebrity. And it's all these different dynamic elements that are at play that make it more than just a sports story. I think it's really, really good, and I'm glad that we're not just getting one season of it, even if it's going to maybe jump around in time or something, because it's a very like interesting way to tackle these kinds of sports stories, even if maybe we'll never get a mid-90s Knicks version of this one. But they'd have to call that Losing Time, but Losing Time.
Losing
hopefully.
Time. Coming soon. That won't be HBO Max.
Yeah,
not even HBO, bro. That'd be the one.
That's on Stars.
Oh, damn.
All right. So my number one show of the year so far, Art mentioned it earlier. It is Barry season 3. Barry, I think, has just grabbed the belt. I don't know if I think that the first 2 seasons were necessarily the best in the years that they came out, but for me, this is like clear and away the best. It has taken a huge step up in its 3rd season in just building the tension and embracing this extremely bleak point of view. Like, this is a show that has firmly become about the reverberations of violence and how an act of violence is not just that act of violence, but all the effects that are felt thereafter by the people close to the act of violence, by the people who love the people around it. It's something that is much deeper and messier, and the ways in which Barry is this poison that is seeping into the people around him has become so compelling to watch. I'm also just fascinated by the development and emergence of Bill Hader, the filmmaker, this season. He directed half of the episodes, and he does it with such visual flair, such interesting composition, whether it's these fantasy sequences that happened late in the season or these long takes that happen frequently. There's an amazing long take in the first episode. There's a couple long takes later too that I can point out that I thought were amazing, but like I'm just so consistently impressed and just surprised. When it finally builds to its incredible finale, it's some of the most tense, upsetting TV I've ever seen, but you're on the edge of your seat. That the show is not only a hilarious comedy, but like the bleakest drama we have right now. It's some incredible stuff. So I don't know what they can do after the way that season 3 ended, but I know better than to not trust them, because they are so good at making this show. So I have Barry at my number 1 spot.
Highly agree.
And that leaves me.
All right. So I got Barry at number 1. Art had Winning Time at number 1. A couple HBO shows. Amanda, are you going to switch up networks on us?
Yeah, I'm coming in with I literally finished watching this last night before I went to bed.
Ooh.
Heartstopper on Netflix.
Okay.
It's adorable. I don't know if it's the best show, and it's so cute. It's just adorable. This is this adorable little coming of age story where you've got it's in England, but it's the schools are split. It's all boys schools, all girls schools. It's based off of a comic series that was apparently really well received, so I need to check those out too. But they do a lot of really cool stuff with that too, kind of when a character goes to hold someone's hand, it'll show the little animated electric sparks kind of coming off to show that there's this tension there. And one of the characters, he'll kind of imagine and catastrophize the worst. So if he thinks somebody's saying something, he'll kind of imagine it happening, but he's just kind of spacing out. But they show it on screen what this other person's saying to him, kind of like an anxiety response. it's just really cute. So you've got like the main two characters basically is one's kind of like this out gay kid at the school who was really bullied, but it's kind of settled out for the most part now. And then you've got this other kid who's on the rugby team who kind of like sticks up for him and is starting to struggle with his sexuality. And I would die for that character. His name is Nick. I will die for Nick any day of the week. I think this show is just really well done and how it handles different characters and just different things just really subtly, while also feeling very authentic to kind of like the teenage experience. I really like it. I understand why everybody was like really upset that I hadn't talked about it just because it came out I just hadn't had a chance to, but it's really good. It's really, really cute. Really cute.
Nice.
Yeah. People who have seen Heartstopper seem to really love Heartstopper. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm glad that you got that on here and that it's resonated so much for you too.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. So I see what you mean, that there is some Netflix representation. You got a few Netflix shows on your list, definitely more than Art and I had. Overall, it feels like HBO is the big winner here. I think 4 slots went to HBO Max and 3 more went to HBO. But Apple TV Plus had 4 shows. FX has 4 slots. And then, like I said, Netflix had 5 slots. So that's also pretty high up.
Me. It's just
what were your Netflix shows?
You and Russian Doll.
Yeah. What
were your Netflix shows?
So Heartstopper, Stranger Things, Umbrella Academy, First Kill.
Okay, so I need to watch 2 of those.
Then Art had Russian Doll, so a bit of variety at least.
Yeah.
And then I would have put the other.
I mean, I think that speaks to. Right. I think that speaks to like the quantity that Netflix is delivering, but a lot of the shows that were near the top of our lists, HBO, Apple TV Plus, like the old king of quality and perhaps the new king of quality prestige television, battling it out. And I kind of feel like that's going to be the case for, the next year or two at least, is the best shows. The Emmys are going to be coming down to mostly those 2 networks.
Until Discovery Plus, Zach.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's about all for our best TV of the year so far. Let us know what your favorite TV shows of 2022 so far are in the comments down below, or by shooting us an email at intercutpod@gmail.com. But you can also catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd @ZShevich, and check out my YouTube or TikTok channels at Multiplex Show. Amanda, where can people find more from you?
You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and occasionally Twitch, and a bunch of other social medias at Amanda the Jedi.
You can find me over at LME Explain on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Letterboxd, or every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I happen to like Overcast, and then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed as well on our YouTube channel, that's my other one, /IntercutPod, where you can find our bright smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of The Weekend Must Watch Mondays at 3 p.m. streaming on Intercut. And please leave us a comment, like the videos, and consider heading over to iTunes to give us that much requested 5-star review. Like our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter pages. Go check out our Patreon. They are all at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from me, from Art, from Amanda, from all the guests we feature here on Intercut. And also check out a link to our Discord in the description for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, starting now.